What's the main purpose of societal institution? Why do we have societal institution? Go ahead, Kwame Jackson.
Sir, they basically reinforce the norms and values of the society, and so it makes citizens more functional and they uphold the values and morals of the society so you can achieve societal stability.
All right, very good. Very good. Uh, Bailey, Mackenzie Bailey, your mic is working? Is your mic working?
Yes, sir.
If I should ask you to tell me give me one sentence to describe Caribbean families, what would that statement be? One.
Caribbean families are usually together. They communicate. They help each other around the house, and they just sit as one.
All right, fair enough. Ashley, Shawnee and Ashley, how would you describe the Caribbean family?
So I would say that most of the families in the Caribbean are matrifocal, where the mother is the head of the household.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. So we have a lot of matrifocal homes in the Caribbean. Good. All right. So one way we could say is that the Caribbean family is also, it's very complex and it's very diverse. We have quite a lot of different family types in the Caribbean, but as you rightly state, it seems as if their majority of the homes, and studies have been done that say most of the homes are matrifocal. And matrifocal doesn't mean that it's single parent, right? Matrifocal means that the mother uh, controls or is the center of decision making, because a nuclear family can be matrifocal, a single parent can be matrifocal, a extended family can have matrifocal influence, right? So just to clarify that in the class. How would we, one statement to describe the education system in the Caribbean? Shirley?
Yes, sir.
How would you describe the education system in the Caribbean?
The education system is mainly based off of previously colonial education system. But can you hear me? Because it says
Yes,
my
yes,
internet
we
is
are.
unstable.
All
Oh,
right.
okay. But it has. Oh, finish. Okay.
Go ahead, go ahead. Finish your point.
Oh, I was saying to say it also has evolved to include more diverse topics and courses to allow other people to learn more about their own region instead of only the British.
All right, good. Thank you. Watson, how would you describe the Caribbean family? Your mic is working? Not the family, the education system. Jada Watson? Elliot, how would you describe the education in the Caribbean?
Sir?
How would you describe the education system in the Caribbean?
Yes, sir. The education system in the Caribbean is historically influenced. So it is structured similarly to that of European styles and systems in that students wear uniforms and they're typically jackets, ties, socks, shoes, that kind of thing. And it, as Serene said, although it's based on a European model, the specific curriculum or syllabi has been adapted to influence more Caribbean-based cultural features and topics that would relate more to Caribbean students.
All right, thank you very much. 1,000, you're here. How would one statement to describe Caribbean religious institutions? Brianna, Miller, Amelia Miller. How would you describe Caribbean religious institution?
Sir, some persons are answering in the chat.
You can read it for me, please.
Okay, sir. So for Jada Watson, when you had asked about education,
Mm-hmm.
to say, wait, it's coming up. The chat. The education system in the Caribbean models that of the European system. However, in recent times, they have moved away from the European education system by including Caribbean-based examinations, etc. So that's from Jada Watson.
All right. All right.
And then Brianna Townsend, when you were asking about religion, sir, she was saying one way to describe the religious institution could be the fact that it is very European and African based due to our historical background.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Richardson. Also, it's diverse in the sense that we also have some Indian-based religions. Hinduism and Islam is really not Indian religion alone, because Hindu is not Hinduism. Yes, Islam is not only a popular religion in India. It is also popular in West Africa and North Africa, in fact, all over Africa, and also in Europe. It was quite popular in Europe during the 1400s or prior to the 1400s. And so Caribbean religion is very, very diverse, and we have quite a lot of North American based churches, right? So today we're going to look at the justice system. So we look at the influence of education, religion, the family. And so when the family fails, when the church fails, or the religious institution fails, or the education system fails, then you have this system here, the justice system, that is there to ensure that you fall in line. Now, how would you define the justice system? How would you define the justice system? How would you define the justice system? You hear the word justice system, what comes to mind? Go ahead for me, O'Connor.
Sir, I would describe it as a governmental system that regulates and enforces the law within a society.
All right, very good attempt. Yes. And so when we talk about the justice system, Richardson, you can go ahead for me.
Sir, when I hear justice system, I think about laws that govern a country.
All right, laws that govern the country. Very well, you're correct. Very correct in that. So both of you are correct. And so when we talk about the justice system, we're talking about the body of legal rules and institutions that operates within a society, right? The justice system has several different parts of it. You have the police and the defense force. You have the correctional system, which is like the prison and the juvenile center. You have the constitution, you have the common law, you have the parliament, the acts of parliament, right? These are the laws of parliament that parliament pass. And the courts. The courts in the land is also part of the justice system. So the justice system has several different parts of it. Now, when we talk about justice system, the justice system is broad. It's a broad concept that includes all the different areas that interpret the law or reinforces the law. Because the police and the defense force reinforces the rule. Same thing with the correctional center and the courts and all of these different acts here. These are the different laws that we have that the court reinforce. Or if you don't follow one of these, then the police could lock you up and you end up in prison. And so the justice system is different from the judiciary. The judiciary is the courts. So the court right here is the judiciary, but the judiciary is part of the justice system. All right, hope that you understand that. Now, if you look at this, ladies, you can see I mentioned something about the common law, the constitutions and acts of parliament. These are all laws or rules to reinforce or to ensure that we behave in a particular way. So when we talk about law, we're talking about enforceable body of rules that govern society, or things that guides, rules that guides how we should behave, or rules that uh, ensure that our conduct is in a particular way. That's what we talk about when we are, these are some of the things we are looking for when we are talking about what is the law or the definition of law. Now, in the Caribbean and more so the Commonwealth Caribbean, there are several different types of legal sources in which rules are passed, right? So we have the Constitution, which is one. We have legislation. So these are things that are passed in the parliament of the country. You have the common law or judicial precedent, custom, international law, or regional law. So when our government sign treaties, they also reinforce how we behave in a particular society. When we sign treaties with international territories, it also becomes law. The same thing, another source of law for the Caribbean is equity. Now, one of the major law in the Caribbean is the Constitution. And anybody is familiar with the Constitution is pretty much a very small book. Very small book, but very powerful. Small but powerful, right? In fact, it is the supreme law of the land. Somebody, I'm asking you to read this for me, please, a volunteer. What is the Constitution? Volunteer, what is the Constitution?
What is the Constitution? The Constitution can be defined as a body of law containing the rules which determine the direction of
I
the
can
state
read.
into.
Brianna is reading. Go ahead for me, Brianna. You get a chance to read another slide for me. Go ahead, Brianna.
Including the manner in which the state is organized and the body of fundamental principles according to which the state is governed. The Constitution legitimizes law. It is the base from which it is the base from which the rule of law originates and derives its authority or validity. All norms of society stem from the Constitution. The Constitution may be viewed as the parent law, for all other laws are measured against it. It is the supreme law of the land. In Collymore v.ag, it was said, no one, not even Parliament, can disobey the Constitution with impunity.
Thank you very much, Brianna. And so what this is saying, for those of you who are planning to study law at the university level, this is your first introduction to law. Because once you start, your first class is going to be what is the law, the different sources of law, what is the Constitution, the functions of the Constitution, legislation. These are some of the things they're going to do, right? Yes. And so the Constitution, as rightly stated, is like a parent law. Well, it's not like, it is viewed as the parent law. It is the parent law. It is the supreme law. And therefore, government officials, the Parliament of Jamaica, if they should make law or pass laws that are against our constitution or doesn't go in line with the constitution, then the constitution stands on its own, and the other laws must be disregarded. You must throw them away, right? And we have several examples of this in our society today. And in this case, as mentioned here, Collymore versus the Attorney General of Jamaica, is that it was reinforced that no one, not even the Parliament, can disobey the Constitution with impunity. In other words, the Parliament of Jamaica or the Parliament of the Caribbean societies are not above the Constitution. The Constitution is above everybody in the society. It dictates to us how the country operates. In other words, the Constitution tells us how institutions are created. It defines the state. It gives the state some form of legitimacy. And it also ensures define our rights as citizens within the state. Now, if we look at the Constitution of Jamaica, how it is organized, and other Caribbean countries, one of the first things is that it tells about who in the country is a citizen. So it defines how citizens, who are citizens of the country, how people can acquire citizenship. The next thing is that there's a section that speaks about the rights and freedoms that we have as citizens. The Bill of Rights or the Charter of Rights that tells us about our different rights as citizens in the country. The Constitution also defines the powers of the head of government and the Parliament, the head of state, whoever it is. It tells you how you should be elected or selected, how you should operate, and every single individual, your position in the country has some form of check and balance, or checks and balances, or some form of limitation. So you can't operate like a dictator. Well, people do it because I'm seeing a lot of dictatorship in this country recently, but it is something that is, the Constitution is supposed to protect us. The Constitution also defines our powers. Define the powers of the executive. That is like, for example, the prime minister, his cabinet, the judiciary, the justice system. It also established the function of the public service commission or the judicial commission. It tells you how the finances of the country should operate and all of these different stuff. In other words, the Constitution is there to protect us, right? The Constitution is one area of law or one source of law, which brings us to this point that you need to know your constitutional rights as citizens of the region. When I was going to JC, once you read sixth form, I'm not sure if it is the same thing here, we had to get the Constitution and we had to read the Constitution and know our rights as citizens. First thing, that was part of the requirement for sixth form, to go downtown and buy the Constitution, a small little book, and read it through. I'm not even sure where my Constitution is, but I had one during my sixth form years. Is it the same today? Is it the same for you at the sixth form level?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So you are not familiar with your rights? You don't know the Bill of Rights or the Charter of Rights?
Nope.
No.
All right. So the Constitution establishes our rights as citizens in the country. Now I'm going to ask someone to read the rights for us from here. See if you can let us go through some of the rights that we have as citizens of Jamaica.
I'll
Who
read,
wants to?
sir.
Go ahead for me, Elliot.
Rights that you are entitled to under the Constitution of Jamaica. The right to life, liberty, and security of person, except in the execution of the sentence of a court in respect to a criminal offense of which a person has been convicted. The right to freedom of thought, conscience, belief, and observance of political doctrines. The right to freedom of expression. The right to seek, receive, distribute, or disseminate information, opinions, and ideas through any media. The right to peaceful assembly and association. The right to freedom of movement, that is to say, the right of every citizen of Jamaica to enter Jamaica, and two, of every person lawfully in Jamaica to move around freely throughout Jamaica, to reside in any part of Jamaica, and to leave Jamaica. The right to equality before the law, the right to equitable and human treatment by any public authority in the exercise of any function, the right to freedom from discrimination on the ground of being male or female, race, place of origin, class, color, religion, political opinions. The right to everyone to 1. Protect from search of the person and property. 2. Respect for protection of private and family life and privacy of the home. And 3. Protection of other property and of communication. The right of every child to be protected by virtue of being a minor, part of a family, society, and the state. The right of every child who is a citizen of Jamaica to public educational institution at the pre-primary and primary levels. The right
One
to
second, Elliot. I find that this is problematic. Anybody see anything that is problematic with this constitutional right? Do you see a problem with
High
it?
school,
Repeat?
no high school or tertiary.
Yes, that's it. So you have a right to attend pre-primary and primary uh, level education. But what about secondary? What about the university level? Interesting. I think they need to revise that. Go ahead for me. Next one, Elliot.
the right
To
to
enjoy.
enjoy a healthy and productive environment, free from the threat of injury or damage from environmental abuse and degradation of the ecological heritage.
We'll
The right
stop
of
there for me, Elliot. Stop there.
okay,
Now,
sir.
recently, an environmental group is taking the government to court because they are saying that the government want to mine a particular area of Jamaica, and that is degrading our ecological heritage and it's abusing our environment. Now, to be honest, when the group came out with it and said that we have a right to, because all of these were upgraded, right? Some of these were Some are the same, some have been upgraded. I had no clue of the newer ones. And so this is one that was recently put in about 2010 or 11, right? Now, so that's an interesting case to watch nationally and also regionally to see if the environmental group will win that case and will stop the government from abusing their, according to them, their constitutional right. Because what the government is doing by giving that license to mine that area along the north coast is 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 damaging the environment and our ecological heritage. All right, go ahead for me. Next, the right of every citizen to vote, Elliot.
Okay. The right of every citizen of Jamaica to be registered to vote. The right of every citizen of Jamaica who is registered to vote in free and fair elections. The right of every citizen of Jamaica to be guaranteed a passport and not to be detained or deprived except by due process of the law. The right of protection from torture or inhumane or degrading punishment or other treatment, the right to freedom of the person, the protection of property rights, the right to due process, and the right to freedom of religion.
Thank you very much, Elliot. These are the rights that we have as citizens of this country. And the rights are very much similar to other Caribbean countries. In fact, we have the right to religion. And one of the rights that I have, what I like here, is the right of freedom of thought, conscience, belief, and observance of political doctrine, the freedom of expression. Now, do you see the reason why it is very difficult for the government of Jamaica to ban violent dancehall lyrics? Because that will violate freedom of expression. And I see a lot of people, especially Christians, who are saying that the government should ban uh, gun songs and all of these different stuff. And I think they are not looking at the broader issue, because once we go down the road where governments start to ban certain thoughts and conscience and people's expression, then we are entering a state where we're basically becoming a dictatorship, right? And we don't want that in our country. And then the next thing, when it comes to dancehall music and the violent songs in dancehall music, is that the songwriters, they are singing about their experience. Is it that those who are calling for the government to ban gun lyrics or sexual songs, you can ban them from the radio, but you can't ban the persons or citizens of the country from producing it? Because banning that is, you're basically infringing on the person's right in terms of freedom of expression. Because the music is basically talking about what is going on in certain communities. And if certain people in Jamaica don't want to hear the music, then they need to lobby the government to change the experience of the people in the country so they can sing about a new experience. But in the current state that we have, they are singing about what they are seeing, what they are experiencing, what they are living. And that is the power of music. The sexuality in the music and also the violence in the music, right? So that is one. The next one is, so we spoke about this and the right to vote. The right to vote is important. This one is a little challenging here about public educational institution at the pre-primary and primary level. Because basically what they are saying is that you don't have right for secondary and university education. Uh, Interesting. Then there you also have the right to for peaceful assembly and association. So you can form your different groups. You can form your different association, and the government cannot say anything to you about that. The next thing is freedom of movement. So once you're a citizen of Jamaica, the government cannot stop you from leaving Jamaica, and the government cannot stop you from coming into Jamaica. And I'm looking forward, especially to this COVID situation where the government put in a rule recently that Jamaican citizens must have a COVID test to return to the country. Because that's a violation of the Constitution of Jamaica. You could put them under quarantine because it's a public health, but if a citizen of the country produce a negative COVID test, they cannot stop them from entering the country. Another constitutional right that we have in this country is to move around freely throughout Jamaica. Right now, we can't move around freely. The Constitution gives the government the power to suspend our rights. So every time the government has declared a state of emergency, our rights have been suspended. And in fact, our right can be suspended just for a period of time. But for the last 5 years, what we have seen in this country is that we have state of emergency, state of emergency, state of emergency, one after the other. And recently, the court of Jamaica said the government practice of declaring state of emergency is basically violating the principle of the Constitution. The government said that they are going to appeal the court's decision, but I don't think it will go anywhere. Because if a government of the day from the last 4 years, they have been declaring state of emergency. And once they declare state of emergency, all of your rights that you have is basically suspended. That's a serious problem. I don't care if it is because of crime and violence. I don't care about it. I don't care if it is crime and violence. You need to find the issues that is going on in the country and solve the crime. Let the society be more equitable. Make there be more opportunities for every people in the society. Give more funding to certain communities. Free up the wealth in the country, and so everybody can live peacefully in the society. Because other Caribbean countries, that there is some form of equality or equitable in terms of opportunities in those countries. Places like Cayman, they have low crime. They have crime there, but it's not much in that society. But Jamaica, the rich is very rich and the poor is very poor, and the middle class is struggling. So that is something that we have to deal with. And then the next issue is the curfew. The government has the right under the Constitution or the law to have to declare curfew. But how long will the government suspend our rights in our country to move around freely? It cannot be that the government is telling us that at 8 o'clock, all of us should remain indoor because of a pandemic. That's have some constitutional issues here, and I think somebody needs to take them to court on that. Now, go ahead, Fami Palmer.
There on Boxing Day, my family went to country, Westmoreland, and we're coming back. And what the entire police and JDF people, the soldiers, they locked off all the entries into Portmore. and there was lots of traffic, and we had to sit down there, and they didn't do anything but give us a warning that we need to go home early and don't break the curfew next time. And I was all like, but why was all this necessary? Like there was
That
traffic everywhere.
and then the other thing is that if you look in Kingston, what is going on? Not saying they have the right to do it, because the Constitution give them the right to for curfews and state of emergency. But the continuous or the prolonged state of emergency and prolonged curfew is a violation of the principle, and the court needs to rule on that. The issue with the curfew also is that if you're on the road at 7 o'clock, the curfew starts at 8. You're going to have to treat the traffic is back to back at 8 o'clock, back to back. So maybe they want to enforce the rule for 9, 10 o'clock, but even at 9 o'clock, people are still on the road. I don't know what they plan to do with it. All right. Next, so we have the Constitution, which is the supreme law or the parent law. And then the next one is legislation. These are acts of parliament, rules that the parliament pass, and it must be in accordance with the principle of the Constitution. While the common law, these are case law. So there are some cases that the court tries that the Constitution is very quiet on. It is not explicit. Same thing with the legislation. And so what the court do is that they make rules from these cases that also influence other cases, and that is called the common law. And the common law that we have in the Caribbean, the Commonwealth Caribbean, is part of our colonial past. If we look at the Caribbean or the hierarchy of the court in Jamaica and the Caribbean, it differs to some extent. And especially at the higher court, the highest court, which is the Caribbean Court of Justice and the Privy Council. In Jamaica, if, say for instance, Miller Gordon, Amelia Miller and Asha, both of you had problems. You lend Asha some money and Asha refused to pay your money. You go and report her to the police station, you go to the petty session court, and they will solve the issue, right? That's where you go, both of you. Somebody steals some orange for you, and all of these different stuff, you either go to the petty session or the resident magistrate court. They will solve those issues. You're not paying your taxes, same thing. You go to the tax court. Family issues, you go to the family court. Juvenile children under 18, well, adults is 18, 17 and below, given problem, parents cannot control them or they commit a crime, they go to the juvenile court. We have the drug court that deal with drugs offenses, traffic court that deal with traffic offenses. Then after that, we have the Supreme Court, and on the same level of the Supreme Court is the gun court. So if you have gun-related crime, that's where this is tried. Same thing with the revenue court. You owe some money, you move from here to the revenue court. After that is a court of appeal. So if a decision is made down here, you can, and you don't like the decision that is made from these courts, then you can appeal the decision. You think that it wasn't a fair decision, you appeal it. Now, the last place that you can appeal a decision in Jamaica is the Privy Council, which is located in the United Kingdom. So our highest court in Jamaica is the UK Privy Council. Other Caribbean countries, like for example, Barbados, Dominica, Belize, and Ghana, they would have removed the Privy Council and implement the Caribbean Court of Justice as their final court. So there are two final courts in the Caribbean. You have the Privy Council for some territories and the CCJ, which is the headquarters is in Trinidad. for some territories. Now, there are two functions of the CCJ when it was established. One, it was established in its original jurisdiction, meaning for the CCJ, the Caribbean countries sign, CARICOM countries or countries who are part of CARICOM, they sign a treaty that is called the Treaty of Shagarama. And the Treaty of Shagarama said that we should have free trade between the territories, freedom of movement, and all of these different stuff. If you violate, if a member state should violate the treaty, then you go to the CCJ to get some form of remedy to the problem, right? Or to solve the issue. Recently, in a young lady by the name of Shanique Mary from Jamaica, she went to Barbados and she was raped at the immigration. That's what she said. She said she was finger raped by the immigration officer who accused her of bringing drugs into the country. There was no drugs. And she brought the Barbados government to court, to the CCJ under the original jurisdiction, and she won the case. Why? Because the treaty said that as CARICOM countries, we have freedom of movement, and her movement was curtailed by an immigration officer, and therefore the court ruled in her favor. Now, the appellate jurisdiction is as a final court when it comes to civil and criminal matters. So, in the event, for some countries, their final appellate is the Privy Council, while in others, it is the CCJ. So, there are two functions. It acts as a final appellate court and also in its original jurisdiction as to basically ensure that countries follow the Treaty of Shagaramas or trade rules, right? The rules that they would have established in the treaty, trade rules. Next, so these are the countries. So all these countries go to the CCJ in its original jurisdiction. If there's problem when it comes to freedom of movement or trade or these things, countries Antigua, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Ghana, Haiti, Jamaica, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. All of these territories are members of the CCJ under its original jurisdiction. However, only Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and Ghana are member goes to the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction. All right. Next, there is debate in the Caribbean, especially in Jamaica, about whether we should remain a part of the CCJ. Should we join the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction and remove the Privy Council from being our final court, right? The debate is good. There are perfect, what I would say, there are good arguments on both sides of the coin. One of the arguments, and for me, I believe that we should go join the CCJ in its appellate because we're already part of the CCJ in its original. We should join the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction. Why? Because we're already paying for the court. We already contribute as a country to the court. The next thing is that as Jamaican citizens, in order to go to the Privy Council, we have to have money to go to the Privy Council. A poor person cannot go to the Privy Council just like that because you need to pay for the visa, you need to get credit card for hotel fees, you need to do all of these different stuff. And then the next thing is that you have to apply for a UK visa. It cannot be that the highest port of the land, we have to apply for a UK visa to access the highest court of the land. Something is fundamentally wrong with this arrangement in Jamaica and the other Caribbean countries that follow this practice. The next thing is that Trinidad, the CCJ, its headquarters is in Trinidad, but although the headquarters is in Trinidad, it is a traveling court. So when you have issues, so although it's in Trinidad, they would go to all the different member states for different to deal with the different cases from the different countries, right? So it's not a case where people from Barbados will travel to Trinidad to access the court system there. In fact, the CCJ travel to Barbados to deal with issues that they want to solve there. So it's a traveling court. And the debate is a lot of things going on. I think you should read up on the debate that is going on between the CCJ and the Privy Council. PJ Patterson tried to change it so we could have the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction, and Portia Simpson Miller tried, but the JLP they vote against it for reasons I do not know. Another part of the justice system is our correctional system, the prison, right? Very important part of it. And our prison system, in which supposed to facilitate rehabilitation, our prison system has some serious issues. This is what I think that I take from a newspaper this year, that the prisoners say hellish conditions worsened since COVID. So one example of hellish condition is that our prisons are overcrowded. There's quite a lot of inhumane treatment going on in our prison. Our infrastructure, in terms of prison infrastructure, is very, very poor. The General GP, which was built in 1845, was built for 650 inmates. But right now it has over 1,700 inmates at that prison. So it's overcrowded. And it's not just for the prison downtown, but this one in Spanish Town are all over the country where we have prisons. And not only our prisons, but our jail cells are terrible in Jamaica. Next, the police force. In Jamaica, there's a lot of extrajudicial killing by the state or the police. In 2014, we had the court rule against the death squad, where police officers were ordered to go out and kill persons who they allege are criminals. It could be that they are criminals, but we, as a country, we can't operate like that. It cannot be that the police also acts as judges in situation like that. The death squad. Then we also, these are two recent articles this year: deadly police shooting sparks protests in St. Anne, alleged killer cop removed from frontline duties. Serious issues. Then we had recently Mario Dean, who ganja was found with some possession of ganja. He was taken into prison. He was beaten in the prison and he died. And to date, we have not had any form of justice when it comes to the Mario Dean case. And so some people in the society see the police force as an oppressive institution. In fact, the Rastafari call them Babylon. And then another issue that we face in the police, with the police, is a lot of bribes that is going on. So when a police stop you when you violate a traffic offense, they would ask you left or right. Left meaning is either you left, you leave some money, or they will write you the ticket. Come on. We can't be operating like this as a country. Cannot be operating. On Monday, I went to the tax office in Spanish Town. And on my way, the police had some checkpoints and they stopped. Well, I'm driving and they stopped me on the road. Uh, and I mean, in fact, I wasn't driving fast or anything like that, right? But the police just stopped me. I was very shocked because I was not expecting what came out of his mouth. The police officer asked, "Me there so from morning, you know, you can't buy me a Lucozade." Yes, all of these in this country bribe. You stop a civilian on its way, asking the civilian to buy you a Lucozade for you to drink. It is a government responsibility if you are working at different checkpoints to provide water and juice and all of these different things for you, right? To provide water and this, but not to stop civilian. That means if they should search my car and they found an illegal weapon in the car, and if I could, I offer them $300,000, then they could easily take that money and I get off and I go with the gun and the crime continue. Serious problem with our police force, not only in Jamaica, but in the wider Caribbean. So the government has recognized the issues when it comes to the police force, and they implemented Bruce Golding when he was prime minister. Very good job implemented Indicom to solve some of these issues of police brutality in Jamaica. And I'm going to end here with in Trinidad, where in Trinidad, this young lady, she worked in the court there, Andrea. She took a taxi, went home, well, not on her way home, they couldn't find her. Oh God, it's a sad situation because she lived with her father. He's a single parent. I think he basically, they know him train up him daughter and him take good care of her, and she go to university and she pass her exam, and she is she is she's no she got her job, and two is she's gone. You leave a father with a, which is his only girl, his only daughter. You you left this daughter, this man, to live by himself. How is he going to function after this incident? And this upon November of, is it November? No, February of this year. Recent case in Trinidad just happened. But my problem with the case is that the police found her phone and credit cards and IDs with this person right here who is a taxi driver. Instead of the police take the evidence, charge him for the crime, and allow the court to sort out the issue, they beat the young man here, beat him, and then after beating him, he refused medical treatment and he eventually died. They videotaped it and he said, "Oh God, I know nothing." That's what he said. That is what his lawyer said, and his lawyer said that he was murdered. But the case, we don't know what will happen with this case, because they beating him will not solve the case, because his family members are saying, and voice notes came out when he sent voice notes to his family members to say that his car was stolen. We don't know if that is true. And so if he was alive, he could answer some of these questions. When you found the car, what happened? how is it that when you found the car, you found these things in the car? It could help to solve some of the issues. But the police just went into his home, beat him and kill him just like that. And he died around the time of Valentine, which is not a long time ago because we're just in March. So this case is recent case. Sad situation in the Caribbean. Sad situation. I am not saying that he's right, and I'm not saying that he didn't do the crime. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that the other persons who were involved in the crime, or even if he was involved, what about the other persons who were involved in the crime? The case is going to come to naught because he's the one that they found with her IDs and stuff. Nothing is going to come of this case because the main witness from the case was put to death by the police officers in Trinidad and Tobago. Very, very sad case. And then, ladies, the other issue is with our court system in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. Our laws in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean, they are influenced by Britain. We still wear a lot of wigs and robes, but there's a lot of backlogs in cases. And I mentioned early on that it is very difficult for the poor to access the Privy Council. Very, very difficult. So there's inaccessibility when it comes to justice in the Caribbean. And most of our court cases are, most of our courts are still paper-based. You know that if somebody have a friend working a court system in the court, right? And they have a case, all they do is pay the person some money and the person destroy the file. So every time the case supposed to come up, they can't find the file for the case. The judge has nothing to rely on. So all the judge has to say, listen, just forget about it. Because we don't have a case, we can't find the file, and so these persons who should be going to prison because they break the rules, they can just get off. And then some of our court is poor infrastructure, right? The infrastructure is very poor. But the last point is our perception in the Caribbean that the laws favor the elites. And two recent things that would have happened during COVID. A young man from Arnett Garden, the first day of the curfew, came out with a video, and he said, I'm not going inside. And he basically tell the prime minister some indecent language and all of these different stuff, right? But I'm concerned about the mindset of our citizens here. They are saying, and I'm not justifying the young man's behavior, and no way I'm justifying it, but they caught that on a video. The police didn't go and see him on the streets. They went for him in his bed. In fact, they said they found him under his bed. Right? So this is a young man in Arnett Garden. And the perception out there is that the prime minister should discipline him. That is not the role of the prime minister. The prime minister role is not to discipline anybody. The police force reinforces the rule, the correctional system and the courts. The prime minister has no role within this area. People are saying the prime minister should discipline the young man on social media. And the other case is with some other persons who are of lighter complexion in Jamaica. and they were having yacht party. So these guys were at their gate playing dominoes, but the ones on the boat, the yachts, enjoying themselves, they were given a warning. Another situation with Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt was able to have his party, and there were videos just in the same way in which they saw a video with the young man from Arnett Garden, and they charged him. Usain Bolt video came out with Usain Bolt partying with his friends, and immediately after that, some of his friends were tested positive for COVID, including Usain Bolt. So the rules, even though we don't want to believe it, the rules favor the elites. The law tend to favor, they don't enforce the law when it comes to the elites. And then there was another case recently with this old man who was sentenced to 6 months in prison because he picked some ackee from the Governor General's garden of King's House Road. So the Governor General has his garden with his fruits, right? And he was sentenced, he went there and he picked some ackee, 6 months in prison. But we have in the same country, around the same time, we have members of parliament and government officials who have stolen billions and millions of dollars from the government coffers in Jamaica. And nothing is coming of those cases. But yet still the man were hungry and want to cook some food. The mere fact saying come and pick the ackee, show you that him hungry. He told the judge that if I'm hungry, it's not I'm selling the ackee. It's cook I'm going to cook for my children. Them lock up the man for the ackee, but the wealthy ones get off cases. These are serious times, and the perception that the laws favors the elites in the country is a serious, serious problem. Now, ladies, this wraps up the justice system. And so next week when we return, tomorrow we're going to start the presentation, and next week we're going to wrap up societal institution. All right, ladies?
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, man. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks.
Same to you. Bye.
Thanks, sir. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Hall?